position. You give an impression.
Okay, alternative.
Yes.
Let's call them the alternative.
Fine.
How has the alternative fared in 2020?
All I am trying to say, our leaders, regardless whether they are on the minority or the majority, they should try and help us. By the way, there are 557 members of parliament. Out of those, there is a few you might not want to talk about, but the majority are quite good leaders. What we need to do is to sit down and say, wait a minute, what has gone wrong? Why are they so frightened? Who has frightened them? The people who have frightened them are there in that parliament. Their job is to frighten everybody in parliament, not even to talk. 557 people, they can only get 2 minutes to speak when they stand up. So the first question will be,
Babu, I want us to look at the opposition in general.
I'm coming.
Has it really lived up to the billing of the opposition that calls government to account?
Within reason, there are people who are in the minority who have done a fantastic job. In fact, one of them is sitting right here. We don't have to go very far. He stands up and he speaks. And the others who have stood up and spoken. And that's why we sent them there. And they say, we don't agree with this, or we agree with this, or we should do it this way. Now, when I send you to parliament, I don't send you to go there and fight. I send you to go and give views on a particular incident. For example, I've heard him speak several times on certain issues, and he has spoken about the budget. He has spoken about the election of some people, and I had some people were bringing new, what do you call members' bills, which were not good. He stood up and he spoke about it. Now, we've got members of parliament who stand up and actually talk on both sides, who are good. For example, on this side, there is another gentleman, a gentleman, I think he's from Busoga. They stand up and speak, and you hear them speaking very well. So, to me, I cannot run away, run down our parliament. They've had a few incidents here and there. Those happened because of...
So are you only limiting them to parliament? I want us to look
at I was
the
going
opposition generally,
no, your question,
inside and outside parliament.
You're asking me about parliament?
No, I was asking about the opposition in general.
In general, outside?
Have they lived up to the billing?
Now if we go to parties, political parties, and I'm not going to go to this and that one, it's even starting with the one in the government, they're in disarray. All parties, all parties have got problems. And disarray has been brought about by certain forces. Forces that are within those parties and forces external to those parties. And there are people who are there and causing problems with all our parties. Our parties have not had enough time to settle so that they can build parties and they can build this nation. Because those parties, they are supposed to build this nation, hand in hand. By the way, when they are outside parliament, they should work together. Have you seen the people in Britain? Have you seen people in America? They work together on issues which are important to the country. And if they are not happy with what one group has brought, they stand up and give the other side of the coin.
Thank you.
And this is what we want them to do. Now, what you're asking about these little differences that they keep on exaggerating and making them look very big. I don't know, they are merging. I don't know this one too. Those are half of them. In fact, the media has helped to exaggerate some of them. There are simple things that they could find answer to. Now, the one I find very big is where an external force comes in a party and try to destroy it. Now, that is big. But if there are simple things that people want to merge, that people want to join the other party, these are natural. They are going to happen.
Yusuf, on the scale of 1 to 10, you would say, out of 10, 8% of eight political opposition especially, have had rifts and a lot of bickering in 2024. How do you analyze whatever has been happening, from the Mpuga scandal to the FDC, new formation, and all that has been happening?
No, these rifts are natural to these groups. They, when we entered multi-party politics in 2005, and one of the lies of our times, one of the beautiful lies of our time, is that we have multi-party politics in this country, and we have political parties in government and political parties in the opposition. That's one of the beautiful lies that we've convinced ourselves and repeat every single day. We don't have political parties in this country. We don't. We have special purpose vehicles, as they've been called. But there's something special about modern autocracies, is that the idea of political parties is a technique through which the autocrat keeps a veneer of democracy. And we have fallen for the thing, hook, line, and sinker. We have fallen for the thing that even our best, I love this man so much. This man, I was at university and used to come and inspire us as young people. And for all his brilliancy, Ssemuju Nganda is not at the table where key decisions affecting this country are taken. The best brains in this country are branded opposition, and they never come anywhere close to that table where meetings with, say, foreign investors are discussed. They're never there. The best brains in law, in business, in politics, once they are branded opposition, they never come anywhere close. So we continue to come back to this lie, and we say opposition political parties.
Okay, as we speak, the leading opposition party has had a fair share of contradictions and conflicts within.
No, Simon, I said the conflicts are part of this system. These units are supposed to disappear at the end of every political cycle. They're supposed to actually disappear. That's why they are even named platforms, movements, what was the forums, Forum for Democratic Change, National Unity Platform. Even the nomenclature underscores where they're supposed to be, that after this particular political project, they're supposed to disappear. The thing called National Unity Platform was supposed to die after the 2021 election.
Seriously?
It was supposed to die so that it could be reborn into something else. Because right now we have a different struggle. So the struggle of our times have to, the group has to be in sync with the struggle of the time. You see, so if you sustain an old group for a new moment, you're losing it. Because you see right now, Simon, I've said to this show many times, a conversation which I think we have failed to, get running, that we're still a colonized country, right? We're still a colonized country, that everything that, would speak to the ordinary Ugandan is not in our hands. Taxes. I asked you on this show one time that who is that economist that who decides and justifies a particular type of taxation? Who is that economist, Minister of Finance, wherever they are, who sit down and say, this is the tax regime, new businesses, even businesses which haven't just borrowed money from a bank, are paying tax? Who are those economists deciding on our behalf? I've spoken plenty of times about the interest rate. So
you want to suggest that the opposition is simply playing?
No, you see, there was an article that was written by Kalundi Serumaga where he said Parliament was the bribe. That the colonial model, which we're still living under, the colonial model was that when you saw the best among the group, you invited them into the Legico. The best from the group, those who had led the Bataka movement, were invited into the Legico. Seats were opened so that they could be given a soft life, overwhelmed with money, and at the end of the day, they forget about the rest of their wretched. So we are in that process that the best from amongst us enter Parliament. It's not the money that is given dished to them inside Parliament, but the institution itself. Because you see, there's so many wonderful people. My panelist here, Honorable Ssemuju Nganda, there's a story which happened in the, the story of Twaha Kagabo, the man who doesn't know what he is now. That man is a symbol of the predicament of our good people. This man goes to Parliament with a good heart, knowing he's going to work for his people. But as soon as he got there, he got money and he wanted to return it. Now, when he tried to return the money, he realizes, now this is not how this thing works. This thing works as long as you're here. You have to be part of the eating group. So when you keep asking me, how should I rate our opposition politicians? The best from amongst us, the Wananchi, have been sucked into the thing called Parliament, and they have been bribed.
Okay, what's been their general performance? What has stood out in their performance?
Simon, you need to ask the key indicators of our lives. On what yardstick do you measure their performance? Is it on coffee? UCDA was dissolved, even when the best, from the farmers to the best brains who started UCDA to the chairman of Ssemuju Growers Cooperative, all of them said this thing should stay. Museveni dissolved it. So against what he had to stake. You remember we had the current leader of opposition overworked himself when he was grilling, when he was leader of Kosase, grilling the leader of Uganda Airlines. You remember that story? He dominated media for, I think, about 3 weeks or 4. But the same person who was exposed as incompetent is still the CEO of Uganda Air. So against what yardstick are you going to measure their performance? Taxation, banking, mobile money, civil aviation, public health. Against what yardstick are going to say they have performed to this much? You see, one of the pains was when I saw a picture of the current leader of opposition going to endorse the construction of the coffee plant in Ntungamo. After all the anger and the energy and the debate and the havoc in parliament, it's been quickly forgotten. So against what yardstick are you going to measure their performance? But I'm going to take you what I said at the very beginning. You have to look at the bribe as the institution itself. That the people, our best from amongst us, once they get sucked into this space, they're gone.
Well, Honorable Ssemuju, what's been remarkable about opposition politics in 2024?
First of all, the political parties generally are supposed to be public institutions. That's why Parliament, through the Political Parties and Organizations Act, said we will fund some of the activities of the political parties. We are now spending 35 billion shilling on political parties. The point the Honorable Babu was making, he was actually uncomfortable that you want to continue profiling this opposition, this. These are meant to be public institutions that one institution will be in charge of the country today and then another one will be tomorrow. Like you've seen it happen in Ghana. The ruling party losing an election, conceding, and then says, let's go and rebuild. That was the idea, that you return these parties, build them into public institutions, because they are supposed to bring a value to the way the country is run. Unfortunately, politics in Uganda, this morning I was being interviewed by a journalist, and I said, you see, the biggest trouble is that many of us who go in parliament go there because we've seen there is a big salary. Many of us. Not because we've seen there is some good work to benefit the country, and I think I take their value to enhance it. But I make a decision that I must join the parliament because there is a big salary, sell my house, if I have a business, mortgage it, find some money, go and bribe my way to parliament. So the political parties are working, facing almost the same environment like what should be the ruling party is facing. I have told you earlier that if someone can't allow his own party to operate as a party, will that person allow other parties that are not his even space to breathe? Because look, this year, like he traditionally does, President Museveni has started the campaign. You remember in the last election, 2020, 2021, he came to Parliament and asked a supplementary of 43 billion that he wants to go around the country for something with the creation. And then he went around the country. After that, he was like COVID came in and said no campaigns, but he had campaigned. Today, by all intent and purpose, you see President Museveni campaigning, giving money to prostitutes in Ibale, in Teso, where. So is
sex workers, please.
I want to quote the word I saw in the media. There is a lawyer who made it even very interesting. He said in the penal code, prostitution is a crime. So if people who are committing a crime form themselves into a circle, the work of the president should be to arrest them. But he was endorsing them by giving them money. So the president is campaigning. The Honorable Kyagulanyi said we will go and, was it opening a branch and something and something. Then they said, no, there was an accident on Masaka Road when you were going there. now your police will no longer allow you to continue doing the same thing that Museveni is doing. Because this latest campaign by the president, he met the NRM MPs and he said, you guys, it is time to go to the people. Those are the very words that he used and the MPs told us. And he said, I will begin with Bokedi. Then he went there. Of course, when you have a president who lies and he praises himself, because you can't fool people that the president is on Operation Wealth Creation. So you go to district by district. So what is it that the president is doing there, apart from giving money to prostitutes, that remain? Just tell me that he was in Teso, now this one has been resolved. Now he's here, this has been resolved. But he's campaigning. And after this round of campaign, I suspect this year that we are about to enter, if the Almighty gives us life, he will find the reason to stop any other political party. So I want you to judge the point you ask. I want you to judge the opposition, the political parties in the opposition, against the background and environment.
In the midst of the hardship.
Yes, and I'm coming to that.
Do you feel the opposition?
And under which they are doing politics, that they are curtailed.
Okay.
I have told you Dr. Vesje, who is our de facto leader in PFF, is in Ruzera. They kidnapped him from Nairobi, where he had gone to attend a book launch.
Yeah, but do you think the opposition has defied the odds, or they are comfortable?
The opposition political parties, the institutions that are supposed to be doing the things the Honorable Babu spoke about earlier, they have also been undermined the same way other institutions have been undermined. In the end, we may end up where other countries have ended up. And I've said this with a lot of pain. You may have a group that coming into power that has no idea of how a country is run and managed. Because politics, as he said, is management of society. If you look at the rest of the parties, just tell me one party that this one, if they go into government, we are very sure on their own that they will manage the society called Uganda very well. Look at the people who are in these parties themselves. So therefore, at a parliamentary level, we've done the work that is supposed to be there. They will bring a budget, you study and make a response. It ends there. Outside, you will not be allowed to go and do the thing that political parties do. The other day, I saw police raiding Kamocha, where Nopo has a school. Mm-hmm. And they said, no, you can't continue running this school. The military attires inside it. So the simple thing that you are supposed to be doing, you will be stopped from doing them. And I don't want to use that as an excuse to say that there are no weaknesses within our own institutions. You've seen what has happened to FDC. It's the same thing that happened to DP. It's the same thing that happened. Because all of us are also selfish in a way. That we are not in these political parties to grow them, but we are in these political parties as a vehicle for you to go in parliament and begin earning a salary. So the contribution you are making, I have kept comparing ourselves to the MPs in the 6th parliament and 7th. People who risked their own career for the sake of the country, and those of us who are not even risking simple things. If you see the way leaders behave, including within the opposition, you will shudder. So there is a difference. People who,
how do they behave?
People who are in government, people who are appointed by Museveni, and those of us who are seeking to take over from them, something fundamental needs to happen. Otherwise, people who mean well, people who have knowledge and experience.
Now with clarity, how do they behave?
I want to stop it at that. Otherwise, now I'll be picking persons, and I'll be in trouble with my colleagues. I remember recently.
I've not known you to be a coward.
No, I'm not a coward, but sometimes I also have to be rational.
Yes.
Because you can't be pricking people all the time. Then you'll have nobody to work with. So that's why I want to keep it general.
You are disturbed by the way your colleagues are running the show.
But
I have said
saying he has nobody to work with because all of them are selfish and
no, I have said we, because I don't want to exclude myself. when you compare MPs, for example, who were in the 6th and 7th Parliament, with the current crop of MPs that you have, you thank God that the country hasn't collapsed. If you compare those who are running political parties when you are looking from outside and those who are running political parties today, big difference. You eventually, and I remember one time, I don't want to go to that example, it annoyed many people, you may end up, so the alternative now, begin evaluating the alternative, that if Museveni and his group now left power, and this particular group gets into power, are they capable of running the country? Keep asking those questions as you judge people. Before you judge their performance, were they the right person?
But even when Museveni came, he was incapable.
No. Museveni wasn't incapable.
Honorable Babu.
You're talking about Museveni, who was in UNRF, who had been in government. At that time, he was one of the key people running the country. He had been Minister of Defense.
See where we are, Ssemuju. If you say he was capable, see where we are.
We are not there because Museveni lacks the intelligence. The only reason we are where we are is because Museveni is selfish. He thinks only about himself.
Thank you very much.
But it's not that Museveni lacks the quality to run the country.
Captain
He
Babu.
simply mismanages it deliberately.
Captain Babu, when I asked Honorable Ssemuju about the state of the nation, he said it's chaotic.
Yes, that's a good word.
Do you share the same sentiment?
Politically and economically too, and socially. We've gone into a completely different level. Now, we're talking about a lot of things here, but there's reasons why these things are happening. And Ssemuju has been good enough to say there are certain people who are selfish. Now, we've got to start from there. Now, what did we do when we went to the Constitution? Everybody said, oh, now we want a presidential system so that we can elect our president, all of us, and we have a man. That man was given a lot of power. Then, if we had gone a presidential system, the legislative arm would also have been different. But what we did, we went presidential on the election of the president, and we went parliamentary on the election of parliament. They are two different systems. Parliamentary in the sense that you let political parties there, and then you create in the constitution the word things called opposition. In the presidential system, you have majority and minority. Are you with me?
Yes, I am.
Because these are alternative, as you put it, they are alternative, that one day this might be in charge of the country, and the other day. So you get your best leaders from both sides. Now, in America, they only have very few parties. But in Britain, they are now increasing. In fact, apart from the Labour, which is in government, all the other parties have gone on the opposition. If you had to combine all the parties in the opposition in England, they would be on the government side. But they didn't follow that. They went for the majority party that became the leadership. Now, that alone created a problem. There's a very big problem between the executive, where you have a lot of power, and the parliamentary system, which also has power. So there's pull and push. And therefore the executive says, how do I manage this very tough parliament? You have been describing all sorts of methods which have been used to do that. To weaken certain people, to use certain facilities, to make them do what you want them to do. Now, that right away is the beginning. Now, to remove all these things, you know what we need to do? In fact, I think my friend said it. The parties are having problems. The democracy we're supposed to have is having problems. We must go back to the drawing board. How do we build our country? Now, this is what I want us to talk about.
So this year has revealed the need to get back on the drawing board.
Yes. In fact, I'm one of those who want us to review the Constitution. I want us also not only to review the Constitution, to even review the size of administrative expenses and so on and so forth. Now, to do that, we need to sit down. How do we build our country? And I think all of you, instead of wasting your time about the small things that people are talking about, how do we build this country? First of all, Uganda was not made by Ugandans. It was made by the British when they were sitting in a place called Berlin. They made a country called Uganda. They put nations in a country called Uganda. These nations in Uganda have never been united until today. When the British came here with a very small group of people, they used something called divide and rule. Our few Africans who went to study them, they were so brainwashed, they started to divide and rule. And until today, we are dividing and ruling. We're using tribalism, we are using religion, we are using... So, until we sit down and say, how do we build our country? And the only way to build that country is stop this branding we are talking about. There's no branding, we are all Ugandans. How do we build this country? I like to use the word the Katikiro used, tafari kutafari. How do we build this country, brick by brick, starting from the foundation? First of all, we have to unite this country. This country is not united.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's look at the big scandals that have defined 2024. Yusuf, which scandal stood out for you? We had the 500 Service Award saga. We had Chitezi, which also turned scandalous from a disaster to a scandal, and several others.
But before you go very far, that thing you people keep on calling scandal is Parliament that is scandalous, not those people.
Well,
I want us to be very clear about this, because those people...
you've been around. I can't enumerate all the scandals that have happened in 2024. But which one stood out for you?
Simon, there's a thing that Honorable Ssemuju started at the beginning of this show, which should feature prominently as a scandal. And because it's not only rooted in our present, because it has prospects for the future. And that's, you remember the year before 2024, we had the president's son appointed, made a general, reached the level of a general. And the year before that, and then later, he was made CDF, commander of the UPDF. And I want to paint a scenario. I want to paint a scenario that, God forbid, that we wake up one morning and Museveni is not able to run this country anymore. The ways in which the current commander of the Defense Forces has been, managing himself, managing his social media, managing himself. We wake up one morning and we don't have life in the sitting president. How does this country move forward? Because you see, one of the most bothersome thing for me is that our president is 80, and many of his contemporaries, the people...
Officially, because he says he doesn't know when he was born.
He's officially 80.
No, the church told him.
In fact, he said one of the daughters assigned him a date.
The date.
The one he celebrates was
assigned by his daughter.
That he has said.
So
that one of the daughters picked a date and he said, sir, you were born on this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says
from a basket.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know when he was born.
So
like
Simon,
a ruffle.
Simon,
It was a ruffle.
Simon, God forbid we wake up one morning and our elderly president...
No, I want to understand, because in my faith, death is normal. So why should God forbid the death of Museveni if he doesn't forbid the death of other people?
I don't want to sound like I'm looking forward to it. So in the Islamic faith, it's also not fair to look forward to somebody's death.
No, but you can't say.
So you are fixed the die.
No, it's me.
For being politically correct.
I don't want to appear like I'm looking forward to it. And Simon, I've written in my column in The Observer that I wouldn't, in the circumstances we're in, I wouldn't wish Museveni sudden death. Because there's a time in the life of a country that an autocrat kills all the other institutions, that he remains the single institution. That sudden demise is as dangerous as you can imagine it. That so now that all...
Genomund called it a center of stability.
So all institutions are dead and the only institution standing is Yoweri Museveni. So I wouldn't wish him sudden death. I would want that this country perhaps is prepared in a different way. But I want to return to the point I was trying to say, that God forbid, I'll say that one more time, God forbid, we woke up and there was no life in Yoweri Museveni. How do we paint the scenarios moving forward? We have a commander of the Defense Forces who has said he's going to be the next president after him. But our constitution says the deputy president becomes president.
The vice
president becomes president. But we have the commander of the Defense Forces on not one occasion. he has said he's going to become president after his father. Now, for me, in my list of scandals, that ranks really highly. And he says, he doesn't say, I'm going to stand against my father. He says, after my father, which means after my father passes. Now, this for me would stand way above any other scandal we're talking about, because as we move into 2025, the man will be officially 81. This year, I lost my dad, he was 80. The difference between my father and Yoweri Museveni is that my father prepared himself for his death. He often spoke about a time he said, I think I'm old now, I don't want to disturb people, I need to go. He often said things like that. He said them joking, but he said things like that. Although the other joke was he said, I'm as old as Museveni, but unlike him, I don't want to continue disturbing people because I think I'm past my time. But the people in their 80s, if you look at Uganda's lifespan, the people in their 80s are living on borrowed time. Now, running a country is extremely stressful. And you see, there's no likelihood.
Is the conversation about presidents not necessary?
Simon, we're talking about scandals. There's no likelihood.
That was in the Constitution.
Issues I don't want to waste my time on.
Simon,
go ahead.
Simon, you actually made me lose my point when you said it is necessary, but I think it's 100% necessary.
Trump is not going to be very
No, it is necessary because
Trump will not be happy.
in the case of Uganda, it was even a constitutional matter, the age.
Yes.
Okay, please
So
make your point.
I'm trying to paint a scenario that we are with a man who is, as per our life expectancy, is living on borrowed time.
But I asked you about scandals and you're
I've showed you how this scandalous this could
Where
be.
do you get this word borrowed time? Everybody's got a lifespan. So what do you call
No,
it
but
borrowed time?
there's a thing called life expectancy. So
No.
when you've gone past this debt,
Those are theories.
Both in the Bible and the Quran. Dr. Besigye, for example, told us that in the Bible,
70
our
years.
time is 60
70.
and 70. And he said in 2 years' time, I'll be 70. And I think I am giving you only 2 more years.
Simon, I'm becoming suspicious why Honorable Bubi is stopping from discussing.
No, I've not told you.
You're
to stop.
constantly interjecting and
No,
making
no,
me lose my
no.
point.
I'm just
What
saying-
is your interest in this
I
matter?
just say when you use the word borrowed time, I don't know where it comes from.
Look,
Everybody has got a lifespan. It can't be a borrowed time.
there's life expectancy, there's religious edicts on somebody's life, there's even Yoweri Museveni himself said, I think after 70 you've lost all energy, you can't
He
continue.
actually said the last time he met traders in Kololo,
Kololo,
he said he's about to go to heaven.
to meet his creator.
Yeah. And he said, you see, you have the future on your hands.
Fine,
Me, I am
please
done.
conclude.
So the scandal of scandals is that many of his contemporaries around the same age, including my father, have passed. And as he also himself, by his own admission, stares at death, we don't have this conversation on who is going to take over this country after him. Because you see, nobody's going to beat himself in an election which he organizes. No, nobody's going to beat himself in an election. As long as he stands, he's not be beaten once he organizes the thing. We have evidence for that even when he loses, he actually is declared winner of that election. And nobody's going to go to war. This is why I'm even bothered as to why. It bothers me, the people around somehow they're thinking, that they now think Kizza Besigye is the enemy, that he's in Kenya.
We don't celebrate end and beginning of a year. For simple reasons, if you are supposed to live 50 years, your life will reduce by the year that you are celebrating, either its end. 2 things have happened to me towards the end of the year. The death of my father
Sorry.
Oh, that's very unfortunate.
on
I
13th
commiserate with you.
of December, but also the kidnapping of Dr. Besigye from Nairobi and driven illegally back to Uganda. Dr. Besigye is celebrating both the Christmas and end of year in Luzira for the 2nd time. But we also had 36 of our members kidnapped from Kisumu the same way. They were in prison for 4 months, and later they were granted bail. But they were kidnapped and tortured the same way Tanzanians tortured Ugandans after the fall of Idi Amin. General Kasirye Gwanga told me they piled them in trucks, and I'm using the word piling deliberately, and they are not allowed even to ease themselves the whole duration of the journey from Kampala to wherever they took them to Tanzania. That's what happened to these children who were kidnapped from Kisumu. So that's how the year on my part has ended, with the death, but also the arrest of Dr. Kizza Besigye. Actually, not arrest, the kidnapping.
So these two summed up your year?
No, I said that's how the year ended. But in the year, I didn't know, maybe I was naive, that we'll wake up one day when President Museveni has appointed his son as CDF. That happened in March. And it happened against the background of his son breaking the Constitution, breaking the UPDF Act, forming a political party. This guys, you remember, Lieutenant General Henry Tumukunde, that time I was in the media, he nearly formed a political party, Henry Tumukunde, during the debate on the removal of term limit 205. And Tumukunde was arrested and kept in detention for 4 years. One of the crimes he was accused was spreading harmful propaganda. And the propaganda was that Tumukunde had been on 2 radio stations speaking against the removal of term limit and calling President Yoweri Museveni to peacefully retire and hand over power. That was defined as harmful propaganda, and Tumukunde was not very far from here, officers' mess. That's where he was detained for 4 years. But today we have a serving UPDF officer, general, who is even the head of that institution. So the thing that President Museveni will never do many years ago, he now casually and comfortably does those things. I remember I was in Makerere 97, 96, around there, when the Honorable Agura Award complained that Mr. Museveni had irregularly recruited his son into the military. And the president, no, my son is LD, he's not military. That is the story that we are told. Eventually, that son who had been LDU, I don't know how he metamorphosized into the military. And at the rank...
Actually attended Sandhurst.
Yeah, but that is the background. When Gaddafi visited here, he's the one who promoted him to the rank of a major. At Kololo, he was attending a ceremony. In the military, I don't know how it is done now, but at that time, every promotion, there was what they used to call GAO, General Administrative Order. For every promotion, they are supposed to record it, give reasons, and file it. That Ssemuju Nganda has been promoted from this rank to this rank, and these are the reasons, and it is in the file. This particular promotion of Gaddafi did not have a general administrative order, but it happened, and so on and so forth. So that's where we are as a country, because we've lived it, we've lived with it. Even you in the media, you no longer take it as a serious matter, that you can have a president who can appoint his son as CDF to head the military. Of course, already he had appointed his wife as a Minister for Education, but since you're talking about the year 2024, the appointment of Muhoozi.
So you want to suggest that the appointment of Muhoozi was a strategic, rather a significant moment?
It is. That a sitting president can ask his son to head the military. A son whose background in the military I have given you, that at that time the president was a bit shy. Even when the matter of his son being in the army was raised, he didn't find it okay. Another time he said, no, my son is not in the military, actually he's LDU. Because there were almost no qualification to join LDU. But to be recruited in the army, there are processes. First, they must announce that they are recruiting, because that's what the Constitution says.
Okay, I understand.
So I know you are uncomfortable, like all of you are in the media, when you begin speaking about the Museveni family, but you're not talking about a CDF. So you want me to stop discussing the CDF?
No, not really, not really.
Yeah, I see you now, you're trying to...
No.
You asked me about the year, and I am telling you in March this year, one of the most significant things, and historically one of the most significant things that has happened in the management of Uganda, is that a sitting president appointed and handed the military to his son. The things that the son has done should concern you if the appointment didn't. That he can attack one country after another, and then he can threaten other senior officers and say, I will arrest you, you are hiding under my father. Because they look at this thing now as they are at home. So the rest of you are just serving the family. Because a CDF, and you are telling the immediate deputy CDF, Erweru, that you a buffoon. Not just a buffoon, but I'm going to arrest you. You are hiding under my father. These things are significant. They define which sort of country we are living in. And the father is there continuing to babysit his son. He abuses Kenya. He calls Kenya to apologize. He has now abused Khartoum. The father has kept quiet. The other day he was abusing Ethiopia. I think they nearly chased our diplomats from Ethiopia. So if there is anything that has, for me, has defined the year, is Museveni cementing the family role. That you guys, we are in charge, Uganda is our enterprise, we will rule it the way we want, and I will do so with my family. So my son, you can help me with the military. My wife, you can help me with education. My brother, wealth creation. My in-law, export. What? So that's where we are. That's where we are as a country, and for me, that has defined the year that now all the pretense has gone away in the year 2024.
Well, Dr. Ssemuju, you chose to look more at Parliament. How best can the country make sense of everything that transpired, from the way citizens wanted to run on Parliament, and then the exposure, the entire spotlight on Parliament, and how Parliament has conducted business?
I mean, my spotlight in Parliament, I made to underscore the fact that at every moment in our politics, the wananchi has to realize that the crisis we have will require all our concerted efforts to refocus and push a reset of the country. And what the politics Parliament has showed us is that you need to get away from Parliament, take Parliament to the street of the city, take Parliament to the capitals of this country, and then the citizens have to take these things back in their hands. So if you look at the major parties in the country, which is NUP, it has been this year that NUP disintegrated at Museveni's money, right? So through the Speaker of Parliament, allegedly, there was money which was shared, given to Matthias Impuga, who was then leader of the opposition, and we saw NUP now in some sort of disarray. And around the same time, the FDC, which has been the leading political party in the opposition for quite some time, also money acquired in 2021, they haven't yet survived this sort of scandal. We see a new political formation emerging. Right? I tend to see these not as new beginnings. I see these as reminders to the wananchi that you need to remember the people that you see fronting at what you call the front line. The people that you see at the front line are not really at the front line. They are entangled in thousands of scandals and problems, and they're constantly trying to refocus and reimagine themselves. It is up to you to wake up and do this thing on their own. And the silver lining in this entire thing, Simon, is that even the scandal that continues to rock the NUP, for example, was started by a citizen journalist. somebody who took to social media and made this grand exposure, right? So it is in this moment that we've seen Agatha, Agora, Spice and Tongo emerge as the new movers of opposition politics. And one of the fascinating things that you will see in our parliament nowadays is that what gets onto the floor often starts on the streets of social media. That people on the streets start to raise these things and then they become issues that are debatable on the floor of parliament, right? Which is, again, a constant reminder that the wananchi have to take the thing in their hands and then fight. So this is why I think parliament is spotlighting in this case, that when you see people gearing up again, preparing them for the next election, which is 2025 is going to be the year of the election, the wananchi need to have this reminder.
Is there a sense that maybe the public went for a soft target, spared State House and went for Parliament?
I think you need to, I'm not sure I understand the question, because you see, when you're fighting, this war has so many fronts, and every front requires fighters targeting it, right? You know, what Ssemuju, quite elaborately spelled out, the crisis we have in State House is that right now we have a CDF who doubles as a comic and is cracking bad jokes on social media, and these jokes have entangled our foreign policy in different ways, right? So that we have a crisis there. At a very top level, that you have the CDF, a general, attacking another general. One time you have a CDF attacking a son-in-law of the president. You see, so we have that front line. You could say that front line has largely been ignored by the wananchi, the everyday strugglers, but that we are closely watching, and you can see the struggle playing out. So the other space of struggle is what happens in Parliament, where people come to us every single year and promise that we're all your frontline commanders. So the spotlight has been on them. But Simon, you need to understand also that not really on them when you come to the social media fighters. When we spotlighted our public health, when we spotlighted the potholes in Kampala, we weren't looking at people in Parliament. We were looking at the things that affect us in our everyday lives. You see,
for me, and I'm sorry about this, I think
I'm about to bring in Captain Bubi.
Sometimes we ignore the bigger things and go for the smaller ones. The Honorable Babu was in the 7th, I don't know if he was also in the 6th Parliament.
Yes.
The election of James Wapakabula as a speaker and the subsequent election that brought Sekandi and Ayuma and others, at that time, the party of Honorable Babu was identifying and choosing their best.
True.
Today, you can be shocked by the choice. So here, even at a parliamentary level, you may want to be discussing money and so on and so forth. Just imagine if Parliament...
They are not going to the root.
Just imagine if Parliament was a business. Are those the CEO and deputy CEO that you will give to your business? With all due respect to my speaker and deputy speaker. And I have said that many times.
But
so we moved away from a country that was hunting and looking for the best human resource. When the president appointed the cabinet from the vice president, prime minister, and so on, and the country was laughing at them, you remember what he said? I am told he laughed, and he said, you leave my fishermen. So for me, that's the foundation.
But you are concluding.
What has happened is just an illustration.
So these are foundational problems.
Yes.
But Honorable Ssemuju brought a very interesting interjection. But when we say best to who, I think Anita Among will go down in history as the best speaker to the politics of Yoweri Museveni. Simon, you've invited me to this show, and I've said to you many times that why in my punditry I don't focus on people in the NRM, because for them, you could say in Uganda to have a vago. Their intentions are clear-cut. So when we focus on people in the opposition, we are focusing on the promise that they give to the people. Because for them, it's not clear-cut. We don't have a foregone conclusion that they are there to profit from this entire thing. So when Museveni appoints a speaker of that caliber, a prime minister of that caliber, his intentions are clear. And when he says, you leave my fishermen alone, his intentions are clear. And for him, and by the way, for him, because it seems Museveni used to carry money on his head. Museveni used to receive all these insults of carrying money, bribing so and so, bribing. People used to go, the claim was people used to dress up like Muslims and go into State House to receive money. Now those things are not directed at Museveni anymore. Those are things we are alleging the speaker is doing. So all the pressure that Museveni was under, of being insulted and scrutinized for doing these things, now the things that are done to the speaker. So for Museveni, this is the best to him. And you need to understand that speakers have come in phases. In those phases where Museveni had to put up a veneer of a Democrat, Wapakablo was the best. Sekandi was the best in that time. Now, in this moment, where Museveni is a clear-cut autocrat who is interested in cutting deals, you need to get a dealer as your Speaker of Parliament. And he has the Speaker of the caliber of Honorable Anita Among.
Well, Captain Babu, when you look at all the events that unfolded, that created headlines throughout the year, do you imagine that politics took a wrong turn in one way or the other?
Well,
the drama in Parliament, the MK sagas.
There are reasons why these things happen, and we should not be very surprised. If you go back from the time we started this country to get back to know, but some of us supported the revolution of this country to bring this country back to the norm. And when we were there, they brought out something called the 10-point programs, which were very good. And you are going to find that most people left to the NRM because they went away from the 10-point program. So we've been going away from where we were supposed to be for some time now. It did not happen this year. It has been happening for some time. Now, there are people who are talking about democracy, which they don't even follow. There are people who are talking about multi-parties. They don't even follow multi-parties. In other words, everything that we've started here, we are destroying ourselves. Multi-parties are supposed to give us two things. They're supposed to give us a program to run a country, and they're supposed to give us good leaders. They're supposed to go for a leadership drive and give us leaders that we're going to respect. That's what a political party mainly is supposed to do. And they give us a program, and we look at that program and say, yes, these people will definitely lead our country. And if they give us good leaders, among our population of 46 million people, they're bound to be leaders. And I disagree with all these things. All leaders, regardless of which parties they go to, they are leaders in this country, regardless of which party. Now, among those parties and among our country, we have good leaders. And these leaders have to be identified. The problem is this. We have been duped by some people within the system. The political class throughout, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be kind to anybody, whether NRM, whether this party or that party, they've all had problems. And each one of them is playing, they are playing, there's this young man who is singing a very nice song in Tanzania. He says, let me lift and put you on my back and carry you. Most of the political leaders here are being carried on somebody's back. And it's very unfortunate that they are not leaders, they are jokers. And if we go from that point, then we go to the word politics. It's management of society. We have mismanagement all over the place. People are mismanaging this society. People are mismanaging everything. And we are falling into it, and we have a lot of problems, regardless of which party we're talking about. Because somebody was telling me, oh, now Museveni is taking people from other political parties and putting them there. No! From the time NRM came here, it brought people from other political parties and put them in. If you remember, the late Ssemuju was in the government. There was a gentleman, the Minister of Finance, who died, who was from Masaka. There was people in Savannah Kisto was a Minister of Cooperatives. In other words, you can get leaders. To me, it doesn't matter where they come from, as long as it is done sincerely, if they have got the quality to be leaders, to lead this country.
What do the events that have unfolded this year speak to national politics?
It tells me that they are mismanaging everything. They are mismanaging the political parties. They are mismanaging their government.
Do you think the MK question is anything that we should be discussing?
I think I don't have even time for that, unfortunately. I am not going to discuss that. I don't think it's an issue at all. It falls under the word mismanagement. So I don't want to go out on individuals and start mentioning names. Look at the general thing and see what is happening.
It boils down to mismanagement on whose part?
People in leadership. By the way, these things are not done by one man. There's a group of people who operate and do those things. And it's brought by fear of leadership. Once you have fear in leadership, you tend to do things the wrong way. For example, when you are going for election, this competition creates fear in people. So one of the things they do, one, they start blackmail. They start using money. They start intimidating each other. They start doing all sorts of things. Now, this same fear is everywhere. It's even within government. People say, oh, I don't like that man. Mr. President, you look at that man, he's going to take your chair. You're finished. All they have to do is you're looking at the chair to become the president of this country, and you're finished. So until we get away from those little... But the reason why I say I'm not even going to discuss that, if you don't know it is wrong, then why should I discuss it? I'm above all that. I want to bring back this country to sanity.
Thank you. Honorable Ssemuju, as we take a break, what we normally discuss is the state of the nation. In what state is Uganda as we close the year?
Chaos. You see, even the people who claim to be in government, when they look at their shoulders and they don't see anyone they fear, they will tell you. There was a time the NRM was discussing the future. They will call a meeting and discuss the future. That debate will no longer happen. You remember, this year, if I'm not mistaken, Haj Chigongo, together with a few NRM leaders of the Central Executive Committee, the last time they had a meeting was during the death of Jacob Oranya.
Sick.
So they sat when Oranya died, and they went through a process of choosing a replacement. That had been the last time that they met. So I think they were feeling very bad about it. So they go to Achigongo's hotel here, hold a meeting and say, I think out of anger,
they make a resolution.
We have postponed registration of NRM. In a statement written, the same evening, the owner of the party said, I am launching the registration of NRM membership tomorrow. And Haj Chigongo arrived first at the launch. Someone who in the evening had issued a statement to say we have postponed. He was the first to arrive. So if you ask him, and he says total chaos. Even the institution of NRM is not there. People who are in NRM, they are like captives. Kizza Besigye keeps telling us that, you see, if someone has overthrown his own party, why do you think he will allow you room for you another party to operate if he can't allow his own party to operate? That the Central Executive Committee, in fact, when they went State House, you remember the resolution? He said now all SEC meetings will sit here in the State House. What does that mean? That was the resolution. All SEC meetings will sit here in the State House, whether I am around or not. Is State House a public place?
Yeah, but it was endorsed by the SEC members, so maybe it was a resolution.
No, exactly, that's the point I made.
Reached unanimous. That
when they went and had a meeting at Musa Court and communicated the resolution to the media that we have postponed NRM registration, the owner of the party the same evening said, I am launching them tomorrow, and they went running. So we are really in a state of chaos. There was a time everybody who was watching Uganda believed that actually there was a direction and we are moving towards a destination. I think today you will be a fool to think that we have a destination and we are moving towards that destination. We are just a country there just waiting to explode.
I'll be asking the same question.
Before we take a break, just to add a little bit to what Ssemuju has said, this is why MK matters, that the gamble of a replacement, the gamble, Museveni has left a vacuum of this conversation.
Now things, and we've also seen the weakening of the traditional political parties, the bickering that has been very very evident in parties, and also the scandals. We've looked at the scandals. Of course, the 500 million saga has, in a sense, grossly affected the national unity platform. But all these put together, what do they really speak to, and how have they defined politics in the country? I'm joined this evening by Captain Edward Francis Babu. By this time, you would describe him as one of the political ideologues we have from the NRM. Good to have you, and a very good evening.
No, I'm from Uganda. NRM is a vehicle. I don't know why you
can't shed off yellow.
No.
Much of you is
I
yellow.
can join any party. In this particular case, I joined this particular party, but I'm from Uganda.
Do you find it embarrassing to
No. I don't find it embarrassing. I think it's wrong to describe somebody by their party. You describe a person. We are Ugandans here, and everybody's got a belief. And the vehicle that I chose to be in for
Is
purpose
the NRM.
of is the NRM.
So it's part of your identity. You can't shed it off.
Not really. No,
Well,
my identity, you can see what I look like.
my second guest is Honorable Ibrahim Ssemuju Nganda, Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality, and one of the founders of the PFF. Good to have you, and a very good evening.
Thank you, Simon, and good evening to those who are watching and viewing NBS.
Are you equally uncomfortable being associated with what you believe in?
And I have no issues, so you can profile me the way you like.
I like the word profile.
Well, on my extreme is Mr. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, a social political analyst. Thank you for joining us, and a very good evening.
Good evening, Simon, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's very great. At the beginning of this year, I had you, and probably you took us through your predictions of the year. If I could start with you, how would you summarize 2024?
That's perhaps one of the biggest challenges. When you're looking at a super broad political spectrum, that while introducing this show, you outline quite a number of things. But in summary, I would say, we have witnessed two key moments that perhaps will define this parliament. For me, the first one is the conversation on coffee. I think it's going to define this parliament. We'll remember.
Is it parliament alone or politics?
Well, we tend to think about our politics through what normally happens in parliament. But I think coffee is a key definitive issue in the life of this parliamentary cycle. And I hope we'll have a chance to delve into what it means and the fact that UCDA was dissolved, and also the people who fought this fight quickly went to Ntungamo to see what was happening there. And the broader definitive issue for me is the wrangling and almost complete disappearance of political parties in the opposition, which in my assessment I think is good for the country. That every time political parties wrangle, people in the opposition who have organized themselves as political parties, every time they wrangle and disintegrate and fight, the ordinary person realizes that everything is in their hands. They realize that perhaps we overestimated the people that we thought were fighting for us. Or we were so laid back, we thought this wasn't our fight. The political parties tend to work as shock absorbers, right? They tend to, not necessarily as shock absorbers, they tend to work as our frontline fighters. And in the process, people tend to sit back and watch. And I remember very vividly, and I said this when you hosted me at the beginning of this year, that it was in the crisis that befell the leading opposition party then that we had a movement emerge, a people-powered, people-driven movement emerge. It was on the reins of these political parties of that time, from DP to UPC to FDC, that people realized maybe we need to fight on our own. And I think this crisis in these political parties often remind the ordinary person that it's not just the people in the opposition to fight for a good Uganda. The Uganda that works is a Uganda where you are the frontline yourself. And I think that this year has seen still, the political parties that won 2021 as the opposition parties, they have disintegrated further, right? So those two key issues for me, Simon, are very definitive. And also, on a personal note, the election of Isaac Ssemuju as leader of the Uganda Society is a definitive moment for this year as well, because finally we realize that lawyers have been part of the tyranny in this country. When we sit down at the end of the day to write the life cycle of Museveni's tyranny, we will not forget the lawyers, the expenses, the expensive, the convoluted access to justice, the justice system itself. And also, people in Makerere right now, nowadays, are also feeling enchanted to return to the front line, thanks to the election of Isaac Ssemuju as the president of the Law Society.
I'm really surprised that you're not talking about anything to do with citizen activism.
But that's the point I made, that, you know, we've seen the
You
disintegration.
are all praises of the Agathas and the activists who were at the forefront of the anti-corruption.
I mean, I was outlining myself heading into the discussion. I was laying the outline that as parties, as so-called opposition political parties disintegrate, people remember themselves.
Thank you. Captain Babu,
Yes, sir.
what are the key moments that you feel dominated our politics?
Well, first and foremost, we have a country called Uganda, and we have 46 million people. And the 46 million people require people who know how to manage the nation. It's called, what you call politics is what we call political of human management of the people of Uganda. And there have been different ways of approach and beliefs. We have a constitution that is got in this country. We've got a social sector, we've got an economic sector, and eventually we also have the political sector, which you are the one, which you seem to be interested in more than the others. But each one of these affects the other. Now, looking at this year, starting from last year, at the beginning of this year up to now, a lot of things have gone under the water. We've seen a lot of things emerge. We've seen changes within our democracy, things that are changing. And of course, we've got to look at even other people who influence our countries. But I'd like to read this for you before I go on. It's a man called Dr. Chuba Okandibo. He was the chairman of the African Commission for Economics in Addis Ababa. If you are emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, a political leaning to the point that the truth and justice become secondary considerations, your education is useless, your exposure is useless. If you cannot reason beyond petty sentiments, you are liability to the mankind. The reason I've read that one, we have a lot of people who exaggerate simple things and make them bigger. But there is a small theory in liberalization. When you liberalize politics and you open up, people tend to want to form political parties. In fact, when you talk about political parties, you're talking about those which are active. But if you went in the Electoral Commission, there are a series of political parties that were registered with the Electoral Commission, which have not come out. Now, this has happened whenever you liberalize, there is a tendency for people to go berserk and form parties. And as parties begin to grow, there's a graph. If you draw it nicely, it comes to a point when they call it a shakeout. People tend either to merge, or they tend to close the parties, or they tend to unify with others. And there's a country next door to us which has had this several times. Every time they go into election, party seems to merge.
So you mean the fractures and the storm within parties is a natural trajectory?
It is going to be a natural trajectory because the people who form these, they form them because they don't believe in where they have been. If you look very carefully, a lot of these people have been members of other political parties, and eventually they've gone and formed new parties. And these parties have gone on, eventually among themselves, they have also found themselves changing and becoming different parties. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a natural process. It's going to happen. In fact, if you go back, initially when we had UPC and Kabaka Yeka joining, this is not the first time they had that happening. Then you had eventually DP, And then we came, and of course we had that military coup, which unfortunately spoiled that process.
So there's no cause to be hysterical about the splinter groups in mind.
No, it's going to continue. This is going to continue. People are going
It's part of democracy.
It's going to be part of the democracy. Right now, in the British Parliament, we have 13 parties. Did you know that? We have 13 parties in the British House of Commons. There used to be only 2 parties we knew, remember? There used to be the Conservatives and Labour. Now, they have several parties, including a one-man's party within that parliament. So, as far as I'm concerned, this will continue because the process, people are going to come out. If you don't build your parties on a very strong foundation, you're bound to have people separating and finding themselves in other areas. And of course, there are external forces out of those parties that help them to separate also.
Thank you. Honorable Ssemuju, having been one of the key players in politics this year, how would you describe it, and what are the key moments that you can write home about 2024?
In my faith,
Significant for 2024.
Oh, there are many scandals in this country. There are all sorts of scandals. People who are building schools and naming them after certain people. People are, you know, they are opening one of the biggest churches, which was opened the other day. You know, there was a big church opened at Nakasero. All sorts of people came there. Those ones who are extremely religious sat on the front bench. Those who are not religious sat in the back bench. So in this country, we have people who create scandals. And they think they are. But to me, this is drama. What you are calling scandal, I call drama. Because a real scandal which is done out of things is this thing of, for example, if you walked, you know, on Kampala Road and you removed your clothes and walked naked, I would say that is a scandal. But then I would say, but the man may be sick. We need to treat him. But these guys who are doing these things, which in my...
But look, we've had scandals, the BOU scandal, we've had...
You mean the stealing of money?
Yes.
No, those are thieves. Why do you call it scandal? These are thieves. I think a scandal will have to get...
Scandalous, isn't it?
Is it scandalous? When you have thieves all over the place? This place is full of thieves around the whole government. You hear here, people have lost money here, people have lost money there. They are telling us you're now using computer to steal the money. All the money which you were supposed to build the war. What happened? Where's the war? Where's the war, Mr. Member of Parliament? You're one of the...
not allowing us to visit.
Where's the war? Now that one I would call a scandal. Because we were told the money was given by members of Parliament and they were supposed to have a hospital. There are many, but to me, unfortunately, I'm sorry, when I say sometimes I don't want to discuss these issues, it's not that I'm trying to despise the people who are involved in them, in this drama, which we can all see. We can all see that this is a group of people stealing money. We can see where the money is going, and we know what they're doing. We hear, you know this Bujagali thing you're talking about, and what's the other, Karuma? You hear, oh, there were some mistakes in Karuma. There's another one, which is after Bujagali. What is it called? In Simba. They said that it flooded the other day. Bad construction. Money was eaten there. Money was eaten there. Money. These are scandals.
Honorable Ssemuju, scandals of the year.
There are things that may not have received a lot of publicity, but things that define our situation as a country. In a cabinet retreat, where you have the vice president, you have the prime minister in Chankwanzi, the president says, I'll take a break, Mama will continue chairing.
Who is Mama?
His wife.
The first
Cabinet
lady.
in a retreat where you have a vice president who in our constitution is number 2. In fact, when the president dies, like it happened in Tanzania, the vice president is supposed to take over. They are there. In the hierarchy of government, the prime minister, I think, comes after the deputy speaker. I even asked them in the parliament to tell me if they have overrun the hierarchy as they were publicizing it. So the president says, he leaves the cabinet and he says, Mama will continue chairing. I told you that story of how Evelyn Anite made a presentation on behalf of state ministers, and she said part of the reason there is corruption in Uganda is because of nepotism. And Mama, who was left to chair the meeting, started crying that you are choosing my husband and my brother-in-law and my son. And that long story I don't have to repeat. When Professor Kamuntu stood, and the only solution, he said, Mama, now we can pray. But for me, the point is that this is how the president looks at a country. That if I have another, if I have
you choose that for a scandal.
No, that defines Uganda. That defines Uganda. These things of Muhoozi abusing
the U.S. ambassador,
giving him
ultimatum.
I told someone that I am very happy that Muhoozi is doing this to all these fellows, because he was urinating on us as they were there. Now let him begin urinating on everybody in the region. Maybe someone will say, guys.
You mean Susu? You are Susu?
Yes. So this is what he's been doing to us Ugandans. Now you started
urinating on diplomats.
I am very happy. Let him begin urinating at all the leaders and armies in the region. Maybe his father will now buy him a pamper. So that defines the country called Uganda. That the president in a cabinet retreat, he can say, please excuse me, I have another, my wife continue caring. Really, in a country. So why do you blame Muhoozi when he begins urinating on everybody? So that's the country that the president has built. President is now without shame. And it is going to be very difficult to reverse that. The reason Muhoozi says, I will be the president after my father, is because that's what happens at their table, that this thing is ours. If Mama is not there, me, I will take over. Now, recently, Muhoozi said, no, I will not be the first. When my father stops being president, Mama will take it for some time, and I will come. So that's how they view us. So for me, that defines the scandal. All the other things are smaller things. If people have stolen money, you can take them to Luzira. Like it has happened historically in all countries, even in Europe, they steal. But when someone appropriates a country and turns it into a family enterprise, if matters of export, now one of the Mukho sons-in-law, you are in charge of export. The other day we are quarreling in Parliament. You have a ministry responsible for that. But Ruawogo is in charge of 100 billion that is going to promote Uganda's export. And then you have that scandal of the coffee. That guy first took 37 billion, now they took another 70. And then one of the things they are doing is to teach Ugandans how to drink coffee. Then they took the president to Sabia in a bar and said this guy is going to be the one promoting the export.
The president doesn't drink. How did he go to the bar?
No, they told him it is a coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
But the following day, you know, in Europe, they do things. I've gone to attend the Juma prayer in a hall where they are staging shows. So the Juma prayer will happen, and after in the evening, it is a theater. It is a theater. So they took him to a bar. That's why the president went to launch in Sabia. So really, family rule in all its manifestations.
No, I thought he went to Sabia to see Tito's grave.
No, I am talking about this specific event that they publicized. That the other things he went to do, I didn't concern me. What concerned me is that we appropriated 100 billion to promote Uganda's export, and the first event to which they took the president to see how far they had gone with export was a bar. And then they said, this is a coffee shop. The following day, it was a bar. People drinking.
They have also built
drinking alcohol.
And the leader of opposition was following up on our money.
Yeah, so therefore, for me, that defined where we are.
You want to respond to that?
Respond
the
to what?
Ntungamo factory.
They will say the 100 billion is right there in Ntungamo.
I don't know why in Ntungamo. I don't know. Because if you are given money, free money like they were given, you see,
are they building an
the leader of opposition went on a familiarization tour.
You need to be very careful. This guy of vaccine, Magora. He was given money during COVID, and he was going to produce a vaccine.
Making a factory.
Yeah, they said during COVID that he's going to produce a vaccine. You remember Kadaga saying that we will no longer need to get vaccines from Europe. What happened? The day Museveni went to visit that place in Iruzira, that time he was operating in Iruzira, they said, stop Museveni from entering. You just pour chemicals all over the place. When Museveni arrived, they said, but the chemicals, I'm not sure the president can enter. And they were smelling. Then he stopped there, and that was the launch, and he left. Did that guy, with all the money they took during COVID, did they ever produce a vaccine? Now that is going to be a pharmaceutical to begin selling drugs all over.
Where?
Go to Chiramoto. We have spent now close to 400 billion shilling in Chiramoto. I went there and asked them. And then the president said they are going to supply electric buses to Nigeria, but they have only produced 80. Using 400 billion, produced 80. I don't know if the whole market in Africa is 80 vehicles. So be very careful. So there, for me, as I said,
vehicles 5 billion.
I don't know, because we have spent so far 400 and they have produced about 80.
Okay.
So I don't know. I didn't want to be diverted.
I'm just doing quick mathematics.
Yeah, I didn't want to be diverted by the coffee. Because
you're not excited.
Because I saw what happened to the president when he went to Ruzira.
Well, at least your leader of opposition made a tour of the facility.
He went there to come and give Parliament a report. And I'm not sure whether that report he gave, but he's been giving reports everywhere he has gone. So you are diverting me from
the scandal.
From the scandal. These are small things. These are illustrations of the point where we are, the arbitrariness that the president, who has ministers responsible for sectors, he can bring in laws and he say, for you now, you go and take over this sector. You are in charge of creating wealth. You have a whole Minister of Finance and Planning. But Saray in Guru, everybody goes to Guru if you want to become wealthy. So that's where you go. If you want to export...
You have to be careful. He warned you the other day.
Yeah, but you see, the best way for him is to divest himself from public life. The moment you begin transacting public business, we will be commenting about you. If you want to kill us, you can do so. The moment you are in public, if you don't want people to speak about it, I mean, there are other 7 narratives that we don't talk about. Are they not there?
Isn't it odd that Ssemuju is not speaking about the scandal that Parliament has been this year? It's been more of a scene of drama.
No, I have said all these manifestations. I want to speak about things that are going to determine the direction the country is taking. People like smaller things.
Okay, do you agree Parliament has been scandalous this year?
No, I told you from the beginning that the scandal is not the money. The scandal was the sort of human resource that was put at running the Parliament. So if you put someone who can score as their striker, so the scandal doesn't become not scoring. The scandal begins with selecting that person to be a striker. But for you like going for smaller things. Me, I want to go for bigger things.
Yes.
If you select a team of human resources you are sure will not deliver, and it doesn't deliver. So the scandal is not them not delivering. The scandal is selection.
As we get out of here, Yusuf, we need to look at some of the personalities and how they have fared. Of course,
Simon, I need to pick from where Ssemuju stopped. And he said, we need to stop focusing on the small scandals and go to the bigger scandal. I mean, when you look at the litany of things that Ssemuju has touched, these are things which are substantive enough to overthrow a government, to collapse on itself. In the accumulation of all these scandal after scandal involving just the palace and the people around the system. But then you ask, how has it been possible? Because this is not the first time this is happening. You know, we used to sit back and say, oh, look at Zimbabwe. Oh, see how Mugabe is governing that country. Oh, look at the other place. Look at Bouteflika. We used to laugh and say, hey, look, all the things, the wife is the son, Gaddafi. Now it is us. And then we kept asking, how did this happen here? So the biggest scandal for me is we need to understand we have never been able as internally as a country to change our leadership without external help. Neither have our leaderships been able to overstay on us, if that expression is acceptable, without external help.
Well, I want us to
This
look
is why.
there's
The point that Ssemuju touched a couple of beautiful things that we don't need to lose. This is why when Ssemuju says he was happy when Muhoozi Kainerugaba was urinating on these diplomats, because these diplomats have sustained this system in power. They have entered a negotiation that give me and I give you. So Museveni says, we want you to go and do us a job in Somalia. Museveni is ready to send them troops. We need you to keep the government in South Sudan because we are staying the all there. Museveni is happy to do that. So they have a mercenary system. So when MK starts urinating on them, these people have sustained this system.
I think urinating is such a gross word.
It normally appears in plenty of editorial cartoons across the country, in many major newspapers. So I think for me, we don't need to lose the scandal that Ssemuju just pointed to, that the policy scandal will soon will engulf the entire country. And Simon, we are looking at either Sudan, Khartoum, what is happening right now, or we are looking at Somalia.
Who is your personality of the year? And why?
I didn't prepare to answer that question. So I'll say pass.
Who among the persons that I would mention here, there's MK, there's AAA, there's President Museveni, there's Bobi Wine, who stood out and for what reason?
Again, I didn't prepare to answer that question. You know, the people that the names you've read out, we've been discussing these people as the people who have presided over the scandals in our country, right? I'll give a pass to Bobi Wine, but the other people that you mentioned, you know, they are the people. You see, the money that is shared in Parliament is not necessarily our taxpayers' money, but it's the trade we enter between us and the diplomats who are sustaining this system in power.
Thank you. Honorable Ssemuju, who do you nominate as your person of the year as we sign out of here?
I say, I'm not sure that I will not be biased, because if you ask me, I will nominate Dr. Besigye.
Who is your person of the year?
Dr. Spire Sentongo and Semakande.
Oh.
Those are my best people this year.
Well, that's a wrap for me. And I would perhaps say my person of the year is the Katikiro.